Looks like we are live, but no viewers yet. Couple reactions. Give it a couple seconds for folks to sign on.
I'll just pull it up live and like it, just so we get the juices.
I know. Live share. Got 3 reactions. I'm not seeing a viewer count up, so I'll wait just a sec. This is the Kenshoo Ecomm Ask the Experts. I'm here with Ryan Mulvaney from Quiverr. Give us just a second. Looks like we got about 10 folks online. We'll get started in just 1 second. Thanks, folks, for joining. Once again, if you're just joining us, this is the Kenshoo Ecomm Ask the Experts. I'm here with Ryan Mulvaney from Quiverr. Give it just one more second to let folks join up, and then we will get started.
I feel like if I was gonna have the Jeff Bezos mask on, like people would just be flooding in right now.
Exactly. I think that's the future of this call. Some the augmented backgrounds and things like that you get in Zoom calls.
Oh yeah, like Snapchat filters, like live.
That's right. Here from the top of the Eiffel Tower today, it's Ryan Mulvaney.
I'd be from the Amazon. Like I'd be on a boat somewhere, like jungle, like lushness around me.
Yeah, exactly. Just saw a question. We do have pre-prepared questions. You can also go ask live. We're 2 minutes in. We'll get started in about 15 seconds here. Seeing some viewers come online. Thanks, folks, for joining. Appreciate it. We will open up the floor for some questions, though, once we get through some of the content. You'll find Ryan and I are pretty laid back about this, so we look forward to hanging out with you guys on this Be Live setup on Facebook. All right, I think we should get started. Hi, everybody. My name is Nick Weinheimer. Welcome back to Kenshoo Ecomm's Ask the Experts. I'm joined by Ryan Mulvaney. He's with Quiverr, a full-service Amazon agency. But Ryan, I don't know if you want to go ahead and just introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about Quiverr and how you guys came to be, a little bit of your history.
Cool. Well, stoked to be here on Facebook, going live. It's always fun, so I got to really be careful about what I say.
Exactly.
We started Quiverr about 6 years ago, but before that, it sort of spawned out of me just selling random stuff on Amazon for about 5 years prior. And what we realized is some of these sort of haphazard techniques that I have developed to sell stuff on Amazon could apply to brands and help them sort of accelerate their momentum within the channel. So 6 years ago, we said, all right, let's go to brands and tell them that we can help them sell more products within Amazon, get more control. And, they looked at us like we were crazy. They're like Amazon? Like, why would we care about Amazon? It's like, it's like eBay. And so we convinced a few to take a leap with us. And we actually take an inventory position on behalf of the brand. So buy and then sell their products. And then we invest some of the profits back into optimization and advertising and helping them review generation, all sorts of stuff like that. Quiverr grew, and today we're a platinum seller for Amazon. And then 2 years ago, we were acquired by a strategic partner called Advantage Sales and Marketing, and they're a very large broker in the consumer packaged goods space.
Very cool. Thanks for the background. And I can tell you folks, we were just catching up before this. I was down in beautiful Carlsbad. I got to check out the warehouse and the setup in the office down there. They got a tight ship running. It looks like a lot of fun down there, Ryan. Thanks again for joining. If you're just joining, my name is Nick Weinheimer. I'm the VP of e-commerce with Kenshoo. We're here with Ryan Mulvaney. He's just given us a background about the agency that he leads called Quiverr. Sounds like an interesting model too, Ryan. I mean, you're not just doing the representation. You're also taking an inventory position in terms of representing your brands or clients on Amazon. But I want to take a little step back and give you a little bit of a curveball question, because I think it's kind of fun. I heard this at a recent event I was at. What was the last thing you bought on Amazon?
Okay, the last thing I'd have to pull it up in the app. Here's the funny thing. So when you start a business, because you've been selling stuff on Amazon, your personal account might be tied to a seller account. Right. Sometimes they change the login to that seller account without telling you, because it's not really yours anymore, even though you order product from it. So I couldn't order stuff from Amazon for 3 months.
The irony, it's thick and rich.
The irony, and to be honest, I don't like buying stuff, but if I'm if I'm thinking about what the last thing I ordered on Amazon was a battery to replace my alarm for my car. Super
awesome.
Unexciting.
It's literally the everything store. I mean, the staggering size of the catalog. And I mean, you guys are a platinum seller and, you know, already underwater with the number of SKUs you. All right. So the other question is, what was the first thing you ever bought on Amazon, if you remember?
Okay. I mean, we go back, like, this is like college.
Yeah.
And it might not be the first thing I ever bought, but, you know, this is like 2005-ish. Okay. And all I remember is buying something. And in order to get free shipping, Super Saver shipping, you had to get to $25. So I remember randomly adding in like CDs. Like I bought a classical CD because it was only 99 cents because I got to like 24 bucks and I got over the threshold. So yeah, it was something plus a classical CD, which, you know, I turned out really liked classical music.
That's awesome. I got a gift card in 1998 from my aunt for this online bookstore and I hadn't heard of it. And they actually had just started selling consumer electronics. So I got a little Discman. And a fun memory and how to think back and what I've done in my career and the jumps back to there. But interesting, and I wanted to throw that curveball. But jumping kind of into a little bit more of the content. Again, we're here with Ryan Mulvaney from Quiverr. Want to dig in a little bit, understand how you guys think about your decision making for your clients, for the brands that you represent, and kind of looking at Amazon advertising in particular when you're trying to make decisions for your clients and kind of grow the business. Can you give us a little idea of how you think about advertising, how that sort of relates to your growth model?
Sure. So our model, back when we launched, we had two ideas. We said, one, this private label thing starting to come up, maybe we should create a couple of our own products. And so we did that. And then the other side of it was, well, let's just apply those same tactics to existing brands in market and accelerate their momentum further because they didn't have the in-house support to do that. A lot's changed. Now there's more people like that in-house, but it was sort of a novel concept back in the day. And so when it comes to, driving business on Amazon, we always are seller minded because that's really where we cut our teeth. Sure. And to us, it comes down to, obviously doing all the optimization sort of elements to listings to ensure that you give your product the highest chance for conversion. But ultimately what we're trying to influence is organic ranking because that's going to give us more visibility. And then if we know that we've got all the optimization sort of in place, then we're going to get those conversions. So we have this sort of methodology of how do we increase our organic ranking? And we obviously know that you do that by driving more sales. So it's this sort of, is that what they call the flywheel? I always get confused on the flywheel analogy. I just see like a recycle logo and it's like this self-fulfilling prophecy where if you get it moving, it should continue to stay moving.
Right, exactly. That definitely makes sense. You can't have advertising in a vacuum. And we were catching up before. We both have a mutual colleague in the space who loves the analogy of the three-legged stool. Ryan was talking about his 1-year-old tipping over a table onto his foot, and the table had 3 legs, so it really fit the analogy. So hopefully your foot's getting a little better after that happened. But looking at your advertising strategy, and I'm sure you have a team working on this, so I won't get too into the weeds necessarily. But what kind of metrics do you think are the most important? I mean, coming from digital advertising, in other sort of traditional channels. I see a lot of the traditional KPIs, but when you start looking at the broader flywheel and you look at the kind of organic rankings and it's a more complicated picture. So as you look at the metrics for your clients, what are you kind of keying off of?
So you have the standard like the ACoS and the ROAS and your CPC, like you're tracking those types of metrics just because you sort of have to be in the game. But ultimately, it comes down to what is the intention of the brand in their current state of business. And so sometimes we've got brands that are like, look, we just want exposure. We just want as many sales as possible because from those sales, we're going to get feedback on our product. We're going to be able to drive reviews from them. And so it really sort of depends on what the intention is. Ultimately, every brand almost wants to have better organic search results. Right. So that's really where we sort of fall back into. But for instance, if we've got a brand that has a lot of competition, we're going to be driving a lot of, potentially branded advertising just to play defense. Right. If you've got somewhere where, like if I'm searching for Coca-Cola on Amazon, I'm probably going to buy Coca-Cola. I'm probably not going to buy Pepsi. And so it might not be as important to sort of, fall into that sort of, that state of mind. So it really depends on the intention of the brand.
Yeah. I mean, have you ever seen in one of your brands or your strategies for a launch where you have like a 100% ACoS or worse as a strategy to try to build growth on the organic side? I mean, kind of buy your ranking. I mean, I see as a big thread, you read Marketplace Pulse, and you see these, the China direct manufacturers coming into the marketplace with so much margin. I mean, think how much they can spend in advertising to try to, fight up in the category.
Yeah, shout out to Marketplace Pulse. Love those guys. Yeah, it definitely. Again, it comes back to their intention, and you have to know also who you're playing against. If you're picking categories that are going to be highly commoditized, and you know that there's people that are going to be coming in and just losing money for market share, the value in what you have today on Amazon is your listing and where that listing sits within the search results. And so a lot of companies know this, and they're investing a lot of money into growing that piece of their business at a loss often. And again, it comes back to, what are the brands doing? What do they want to do? If you want to just go head to head within Amazon, it's a very expensive game if you're picking certain categories. The brands that I really am, tipping my hat to are the ones that are playing that game within Amazon to some level, but then they're going into other ponds like Instagram or Facebook, and they're really building out audiences and doing the things that you need to do to brand build, because then you can point that attention back to Amazon and not have to play such an expensive game within just the marketplace. That's
a good point. Start driving those glance views. I mean, you focus a lot more on the seller side. It sounds like it's kind of where you cut your teeth. Looking at some of the expansion and sort of the merger inside of the tectonic shifts inside of Amazon, both seeing their advertising business kind of come together as Amazon advertising last year, but then also starting to see some, the traditional retail data starting to show up in the seller side. I mean, we look at sort of non-advertising data sets, brand analytics are starting to show up in Seller Central. Can you talk about how, in the context of broader strategies, you might be leveraging some of those signals or the other data sets that are non-advertising based as you're looking at your whole kind of advertising investment?
Yeah, great question. And, we've been fortunate enough that within our parent company, they had acquired other agencies that played in the 1P side. And so we were able to access some of the data sets. And we even had, 1P business on our own. It was just very limited. And so the data, it's fun to see Amazon saying, you know what, we're not playing favorites anymore. We're gonna put the data where we need to put the data so everybody has access to it. And typical Amazon fashion, may the strongest win. And so I like brand analytics makes me so excited. I go in there quite often and just look at what people are looking for. And how do we overlay those types of data sets back to our brands and give them indications on potentially products to develop or products to target against from an advertising perspective. It was fun because, the first time I saw brand analytics, before it was even called that, it was just like this, we always made these assumptions about what was happening on Amazon. And then we were like, actually, here is exactly what's happening. Right. And so you can make such informed decisions about what you want to do in terms of your strategy. It's a really interesting set of data. I mean, what you were talking about before, Amazon Retail Analytics Premium, that now is brand analytics inside Seller Central, for those of you guys that may not know. It's an interesting comparison to start looking at those data sets, your advertising data sets, and then your audience insights from DSP if you're starting to invest in DSP. On the seller side, for any of the brands that you can get brand registry for, are you guys leveraging the DSP, the kind of upper funnel investment on Amazon, or do you think most of your brands are kind of focused on the off Amazon audience building and sending glance feeds into Amazon? Yeah, we play a lot in DSP. We were fortunate enough to get into the beta. I don't know how long was it, like a year ago or so, maybe 6 months ago. And so we've been doing quite a bit in there, and it's just really cool to be able to do the more granular levels of targeting based on previous behavior. And I do think, and I think we talked about this, that it's probably just the tip of the iceberg in terms of the targeting that we're going to be allowed to do, and really where it's going to go. I think that we're going to, Facebook like targeting, demographic like targeting, I think is going to be a thing within Amazon. I know they're already doing it, and again, as they open up more and more to allow other sellers to leverage some of those data points, it's a win for them because it's more sales for them ultimately and better targeting of advertising. 100%. I, for one, sincerely hope we can start getting some of that DSP level audience data down in our lower funnel targeting as well. Though it's an interesting space. I mean, coming from, again, a digital advertising background with Google and Facebook, they want advertising is their bread and butter, whereas Amazon, they're competing with a lot of the folks that are leveraging their advertising tools, and they don't want you to know how many diapers they sell in California, right? So like getting that targeting down to the DMA down in Southern California, and kind of how much you can sell in that area. Okay, well, you started to back out the size of their business. So it'll be interesting to see how that shakes out. Yeah, it's a super valid point, especially with the heat they're getting right now about just manipulating search results and, you know, to promote their own brands and own products. And, you know, again, like you definitely want to save the best tools for yourself. And then you have to define where you want to go. And, you know, obviously their private label business is, you know, a big component of what they do and probably where they want to go. And so, yeah, I think even when we get all these additional forms of targeting, it's only going to be the tip of the iceberg, because there's going to be a whole nother thing that we're not even, you know, not even seeing.
Yeah. It's all about staying right on the cutting edge with Amazon. And then, you know, if you were there in the early days of lightning deals, it was amazing. And now it's kind of a little watered down. Is that, you know, what's the next strategy? Did get a question from the gallery here today. Thanks, folks, for joining again. Ryan Mulvaney here from Quiverr. Gabriella wants to know, have you worked with non-US sellers or brands? And do you know if it's similar in other countries for the type of work that you're doing on Amazon?
You know, personally, we have not worked with sellers outside of selling outside of the Amazon channel here domestically. I do know that there's firms similar to us outside of here that run a very similar model. And in terms of advertising, I'd probably defer to you, Nick, and I'm sure you guys have tons of international clients, or I assume you have international clients to support.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And Gabrielle, please do follow up with us afterward. We have a whole network of agencies. Obviously, we are not obviously, but we are a global company. If you haven't heard of Kenshoo, active in any market where Amazon has an active API for advertising. So if you want to go to Europe, Japan, Latin America, there, you know, certainly we can help you navigate that, and also introduce you to operations agencies as well if you need some support internationally. Getting some great questions coming in. I don't know if you want to jump into these with me, Ryan, but we got one from Jay here. For brands that see brick and mortar as a priority, and Amazon or Ecomm in general as if we have time, how do you drive home the importance of optimization? I mean, based on the fact that consumers are doing research on Amazon but can be purchasing in a brick and mortar store, how do you drive that, you know, importance of optimization home?
I love this question because it's something that in the beginning we built our model after working with brands that were hedged in the brick and mortar relationship, and Amazon was just sort of this afterthought. And it's crazy that it's still an afterthought for many brands, but it makes sense because brick and mortar is such a big piece of their supply chain. Like uprooting that in any way is just so disruptive to their everyday type of thinking. And so the way that I look at it is, we need to put the best opportunity for your product to convert wherever that shopper finds your product. And so it doesn't mean you have to go all in on Amazon, but if you don't go all in and there's demand for it on Amazon, somebody's going to go all in on your behalf. And that's not always going to be the best representation of your brand. You could have old product up there. You could have old images up there. You could have old content up there. And really that's just stuff that's going to lead to negative reviews, which then could potentially impact your offline business, because people, when you go to Target, look around, they're all on their phone looking at Amazon. And if it's bad feedback on Amazon, they're probably not going to buy it at your store. And so I think it's a matter of talking to the brand and maybe selecting the SKUs that you think have the most potential within Amazon. Maybe it's not the entire catalog, and looking at what the current state looks like and then assessing how to fix it. And then sort of building it from there. You know, I think that, again, the brands have to at least be aware of Amazon today, know that it's a thing, and know that if they're not going to pay attention to it, somebody else is going to do it for them, and it's not going to be with the best interest of their brands. 100%.
And Amazon's made huge strides in providing, you know, tools for brands to protect themselves. There's certainly legal precedent that has been out for the last few years in terms of being able to go out and adjust your distribution agreements, your manufacturer warranties to afford you the protection against gray market sellers and others that might come in and erode your brand, sell under minimum advertised price. I mean, we start looking at some of the folks that are thinking, oh, if I have time, or why should I be on Amazon? You know, beyond your point there's great opportunities for in-store returns or inserts. You look at the demographics of what's the most popular app amongst millennials. It's the Amazon app, right? So if your brand is aging out, you know, bring it back down into that territory. Maybe it makes sense to put a, you know, maybe your intro SKUs onto Amazon so that your brand is being experienced. It's becoming more of a research channel, right? So.
Right. And in that, like, if you've got somebody that is selling your product on Amazon and they're doing a decent job with it, go and partner with them and tell them, like, okay, look, I'm going to give you the exclusive here, or it's going to be exclusive between you and 2 other sellers, right? Because sometimes those are strategic accounts that are retailers for you. and really start holding their hand and dictating, the opportunity. And then if at some point it seems big enough, you could potentially take it over, or you could just keep it out there because you don't want to focus on that. And so there's a bunch of different ways you can get into it without having to be like, all right, we're all in, let's do Amazon. I got to hire all these people and try to figure this out.
Yeah, absolutely. It makes sense. Well, let's switch gears. We got, the last third of the call here. Appreciate all the questions coming through. Please keep them coming. We love curveballs or sliders. We were talking a little bit before the call about greasing the ball and the glove. But we are almost through September, which means, the holidays are kind of around the corner. It seems to happen every year. I'm sure it's an exciting time for those of you who do work in this space. How deep are you into holiday prep and planning? When does that start for you? I mean, some folks say Prime Day is the start of holiday these days. You're kind of testing the waters. You're, getting your inventory positions ready for Q4. Where are you guys today?
Yeah, I mean, if Prime Day is the start of holiday, I'm very excited for this holiday because Prime Day was just an exceptional day, I think, across the board. I thought Amazon did a really good job promoting it, hyping it. I think there were deals there this year. And if we continue that momentum into the holiday, I'll be very excited. And so for us, because we take an inventory position on most of our brands, we don't have to. We can just rep them as like a traditional agency, but because we take an inventory position and because we know historically stuff backs up at Amazon during holiday, the buying side of our business has been very busy. That usually begins in about August. And then complementing that is the advertising side of our business is like, okay, we're going to order all this inventory. We need to make sure we're going to be able to sell all this inventory. And so it comes into, all right, how are we sort of priming the pump and getting those organic rankings up and really tracking that? Because we know come holiday, we want to be giving ourselves the best chance to get those conversions. And so, I talk to brands, if you want to do a gift set, for instance, of your product, like don't put that up on Black Friday unless you've got some crazy deal with Amazon where they're going to promote it and you have to wait till then. Start getting sales to it right now because that organic visibility is going to be very important. Nobody's going to be able to see it if you try to launch it, during holiday when everybody else is trying to. And it's not going to have any reviews. And so, there's a whole sort of system that goes into place to assessing, what you need to be doing for holidays right now.
That makes so much sense. I mean, it's an interesting argument for, Prime Day obviously is a nice bump as you think about, kind of what could be summer doldrums. Everybody's out in the sun. They're not online shopping. But looking at August, September from an advertising perspective as an opportunity to scale up your product's organic rank in advance of the holiday, that's a really smart strategy.
And it'll probably be cheaper right now too.
Yeah.
Than trying to battle in December, November, December.
No doubt. Yeah. And you could change the title. If it's a holiday gift set title in December, but during the summer months, it's your summer picnic carving set or whatever.
I love it. Yes, that's very cool. Yeah, I didn't even think about that. I love that. It's a good idea.
So any other interesting tactics that are coming up this holiday? Any new things you're seeing? Inside Seller Central for the team?
Yeah. Last year we 2 years ago, we went very deal heavy. So lightning deals on behalf of clients, lightning deals for our proprietary products. And we saw pretty good returns 2 years ago on them. This last year, it just seemed so saturated. And so this year we're going in with not banking on deals being the drivers. There's certainly going to be, opportunities to do deals on behalf of our brands and some of our proprietary products, but really we're focusing on that day in, day out work of like how we increase those organic rankings and how we search for, recreate the experience of our customer in terms of what they're searching for, what they're going to want to see. Really also just fine tuning the listings because, if you go into, let's say like Nordstrom's on December 26th, Nordstrom's pretty buttoned up. If you go into like a department store on November or December 26th, everything looks picked over. Yeah. And what can happen over the course of the year, if you look at your listings as each an individual store, like your images get swapped out sometimes, your titles get swapped out, your bullets, your content can get uploaded. And so just fine tuning that content so that it makes perfect sense. It's exactly the way you want it to be right now and getting it sort of set up because, come holiday, like seller support's can have way more tickets and way more attention. And really, you want to get that stuff sort of buttoned up before you need it to really be buttoned up.
Yeah, absolutely. I've got a question from the gallery here. Eric's asking, how do you use the insights in Amazon Seller Central reports to track consumer behavior on your listings? You mentioned brand analytics. what is the best way to use that tool, and does everyone have access to it?
I believe you have to have brand registry for your product. So you have to have a trademark, and then you get brand registry, and then you get an access to brand analytics. What it allows you to do is sort by category, and then deeper down you can sort by a date period, and then deeper down you can sort by a search term. And then what Amazon's going to show you is the most is the ranking of where those search terms show up in terms of all other searches within the marketplace. So if you go top level and you just say, show me the most searched things on Amazon, like the first 10 of them are going to be about the iPhone. It's really crazy. And then if you go into like the grocery category, the first 10 are going to have something to do with coffee, usually, or candy, or keto right now. So what it allows you to do is start assessing what people are looking for over a period of time. And I think you can go back quarterly, like you can do it weekly. I don't think you can do daily, maybe quarterly. And it allows you to start projecting some trend data. And then what's cool about it is not only can we see what are the most searched for terms, let's say keto snacks is number one, it'll then show us what are the products people are actually clicking on, and then what are the products people are actually buying. So it shows you not only search behavior, but then it shows you their intent down the line of what they're actually going to end up converting. So for me, I say, okay, if we want to have a keto snack, let's look at what people are looking for. Let's look at what people are buying, and then let's try to reverse engineer some of the stuff that they're doing and apply it over to our listings, or develop products that are going to be similar so that we can start playing ball against some of these players. It's just it's one of those tools where like the more I get into it, the sort of the dumber I feel. I'm like, man, there's so much here. Yeah,
it's serious shopper analytics opportunity there for those shopper marketers starting to come online with this digital merchandising that we can do. Getting another couple questions. Thanks everyone for driving in the questions. One question from Jay is, how frequently are you fine tuning a listing, before or during the holidays?
Ideally we have it set before the holidays start, and it's more of monitoring it to make sure that things aren't going to break. Really the things that I focus on, the big pieces are going to be, especially during holiday when people are going to be searching from the mobile app, is look for your product within the mobile app, and then pay attention to what you see. You're going to see a thumbnail. So that's going to be really important to get dialed in. And then the next piece is going to be probably the first 100 or so characters of your title before it goes to a ... So really making sure you're driving home whatever it is you want to drive home in those first set of characters. And then after that, put in the rest of the stuff, for SEO and all that fun stuff. Sure. So ideally you have that sort of buttoned up before the holidays, but then going back and, depending on how many SKUs you have, sort of triaging your top SKUs that you really want to move through the holiday, almost checking them daily, just to make sure that not only, does the content not get turned over, but, if people are writing questions in the comment sections, you're answering them. If you're getting reviews, you're commenting on them. It's really your time where you're going to have a lot of attention and eyeballs on your listings, and you just want them to look as good as possible.
That definitely makes sense. Also, Letitia is asking, what would you suggest as far as PPC efforts during the holiday season? Kind of builds on perhaps, getting all of your content operations and inventory out to Amazon, before holiday to be prepped, as we talked about earlier. But what about PPC during those, the Cyber 5 and leading up and the Halo after?
Yeah, and I'm gonna turn back to you guys after I answer, because I'm sure you've got some great insights here, Nick. But for us, we don't do anything substantially different. Like we didn't do anything substantially different for Prime Day, other than if we were running a deal, we would promote that deal so that you get an added badge on your advertisement saying that it's it's on sale right now, basically. But we really try to do the homework ahead of time, and then our ad strategies. Yes, your budgets are going to need to be increased, but we don't go, really hog wild. Maybe if we were doing we don't do a ton of net new brands within the marketplace. We're normally working with more existing brands. Sure. So if they have a new product they're bringing to market, we would probably advise them to not do it during holiday, because it's going to be very expensive to get the attention. Right. But that would be the only reason where I would say all right, we're going to accelerate things. But what do you guys think?
Well, I mean, there's the old kind of adage in golf, if you didn't bring it with you to the course that day, you're probably not going to fix it on the range, So it's kind of like if you're getting into you got to have your preparation. We've talked a lot about that, whether it's content, your operations, then advertising should be, the gas on the fire there. And we see in our index, across, hundreds of brands, it's different by category, but usually a trade-off between doubling, tripling, and sometimes 5-6xing, advertising spend in exchange for, and we're really kind of giving away potentially up to 50% of the margin that you typically take. So a lot of folks on these event days are, looking to really move product fast, and if they can do volume, they'll take a smaller margin. So we see a lot of that, I think, from ad-driven sales, getting those glance views, getting, there is some speed to the ranking algorithm too. If as those eyeballs are happening and clicks are happening so quickly, you might be able to do some moving during the time when there's a lot of activity there in your organic ranking. So as we talked about at the top of the call, kind of relating back to your brand analytics, your retail analytics, maybe some other data you buy to understand your organic ranking. There are different strategies we've seen, and certainly you talked about it as well, protecting your brand terms, making sure you're bidding on those so that your competitors don't have that opportunity to conquest you, is certainly a good strategy. And then really rationalizing your whole funnel. If you're investing in DSP, really make sure you're measuring trying anyway. Amazon doesn't make it easy, but measuring, all of your efforts all the way down to your exact match, sponsored product.
Yeah, I will say, if you're carrying a ton of inventory into the holiday and you need to liquidate it because you don't want to have the tax implication of carrying it over to the next year, then you're probably going to want to spend quite a bit more. And one other just random idea is, holidays are crazy. People spend a lot of money. Pay attention to your competitors because they're not always going to stay in stock. And that might be a good opportunity to not only conquest their brand, but maybe even run a display ad on the listing to be like, hey, I know you can't buy this, but maybe you could buy this. I've never even thought about that one, so have to test.
Well, we're going to have to do a round 2 of this, Ryan. I think you got a lot to share here. I really appreciate all the folks joining. I know we're at the top of the hour, but maybe, Ryan, you could leave us with some final words of wisdom, and anything you'd like to share, any details, we'd love to hear it.
Cool. Yeah. I mean, my biggest words of wisdom, it's not rocket science. It's just trying to recreate how the consumer is going to buy your product and doing it on the app, because we spend our days working on computers and optimizing stuff for computers. But I haven't seen the data, but I'm guessing probably half of the sales now are coming from an app. During holiday, I think it's even more, especially when you're in a store. And so really try to recreate that experience of how they're going to buy your product, and what they're going to want to see, what you would want to see if you were buying it.
Absolutely. I mean, it's something we definitely worked on in my years doing some Amazon management. As you shop on that mobile app, you're thumbing through photos, you're not reading the product listing. So if your photos don't tell the story of your product, if there aren't infographics and lifestyle images, you're not going to sell as well as your competitor might, who's doing that. So definitely keep that in mind. I think that mobile experience shout out is a really good point. So Ryan from Quiverr, thank you so much for joining us. We have to do this again in a couple months. I really appreciate the time. Appreciate everyone joining with all the great questions. Once again, Nick Weinheimer with Kenshoo Ecomm here. Happy to follow up with anyone afterward or get you guys in touch with Ryan. Obviously, this is Facebook, so say hi to us in any way you'd like. So appreciate everyone. Thank you very much.